The New York Mets just traded Brandon Nimmo. Dan and I have a ton to get to. What this means for our New York Mets now and in the future. Let's get to it next on Metcast. What's going on, Mets fans? Breaking news, Jon Heyman, the New York Mets just traded Brandon Nimmo to the Texas Rangers, and I know my guy Dan's feeling his favorite player on the New York Mets, but there was a lot of warning signs around. We had that article come out last week, Dan, talking about how Brandon Nimmo might not be too pleased. He had the no trade clause, so clearly something went awry, and when we hear about David Stearns overhauling this core, does it happen to anything better than the longest tenured Met, the former first-round pick, Brandon Nimmo? Now, in return, they got Semien, a more versatile second baseman. We've seen the power with him in the past, a better defender. This opens up the outfield to potentially a massive contract coming to the New York Mets, but we'll address that shortly. Dan, I want to get to your thoughts. Guys, make sure you let us know what you think down in the comments. What's going on with this trade? What do you think it means for our New York Mets as we go along tonight? We'll be sure to get to a couple of your comments, Dan.
7 years, 175 for Marcus Semien. That's what he has remaining on his contract through 20. Shocking. This is something that I did not expect. I've been on the record many times coming on this live with you, Ray, talking about Nimmo, talking about really how much I loved him as a Met, right? He just loved what he brought to the table in terms of how he brought about himself as a leader. And now we kind of see the reasons, and some of that stuff has eroded over time. Marcus Semien is a New York Met. Brandon Nimmo is a Texas Ranger. I don't even know where to start. Again, one of those bombshell moves, still reacting to it, still trying to process behind the scenes. Was this a Nimmo thing? Did he instigate this? Did a player on the team bring it up? Obviously, we heard the rumors again of the Mets proposing to other teams that they'd be willing to move on from Nimmo's contract. I didn't think they actually would, and they did. And now this is the first shakeup of what could potentially be multiple shakeups. Is Pete Alonso not going to be back, right? Is Edwin Diaz not going to be back? This is just the beginning of that. This is a seismic move. I just remember 2016, 2017 Brandon Nimmo and seeing what he's become as a big leaguer, and he's out the door. So we have to kind of expect Marcus Semien now, who is a good player. But I don't know if it's a sizable replacement, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, I agree. Look, last year, major down year for him. So look, it's a gamble for me right now. It is a gamble for the New York Mets. You look at his numbers last year, 470 at-bats, not a full season. The power was still there, 15 home runs. It's just about 20 home runs, 230 batting average, 669 OPS. So unless he was, managing an ailing injury, you kind of got to go off his career stats. Right in the middle, mid-20s home runs. You go back to 2024, 23 home runs, but again, a below 700 OPS. So unless this means another big move is happening, Dan, for me, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to lie. I understand getting stronger up the middle. Semien can play shortstop, second base. He will be the second baseman for the New York Mets. Also, what does this mean? Maybe, just maybe, Dan, what I'm thinking, the Mets have another trade potentially in the works, maybe a Jet Williams, and I hate to say that, but right now he's got no position. Jet Williams is not, unless you're going to play him in center and Carson Benjamin left in the future, doesn't make any sense for me. Also, we have to address one thing. Like you said, 7 years left on the contract. He's already, how old is he? 35?
Going to be 35.
Going to be 30. And how many years were left on that contract?
It'd be 3.
Okay.
26,
so this is a win now move.
This
is an absolute win now move. And look, it's hard to grade a trade right off the rip because you don't know what subsequent move is coming. Maybe the Mets are opening that left field, and that's where I'll get to in my next point. The rumblings have been out there. Jon Heyman said, don't rule the Mets out on a potential Kyle Tucker situation. Or what have we been hearing for a couple weeks, Dan? They deny they're going to do it, but don't be shocked if you see a Fernando Tatis Jr. move due to that contract, due to the ownership situation, the potential sale, trying to eliminate money. They've been bleeding money left and right in San Diego for years. You have him on that massive contract. Maybe he's the subsequent move. And then if you're able to pull something off like that, then you immediately move to pitching. No, this lineup is settled. But Dan, what do you think of Marcus Semien as a player, in this regard? We've seen him have these massive seasons in the past, guys. And when I say massive, he's had back in 2021 with Toronto, he had 45 homers and hit 265. Never been the same since. 26, 29. I mean, he does play outside of last year. Maybe that's what the Mets are looking for, is some health. In the last 5 years, 162, 161, 162, 159, but then last year the 127. I mean, and another thing we keep talking about, the Mets wanting to put the ball in play. He's not necessarily a strikeout machine, 92, 93 last year, but it's not like he does not strike out at all. That OPS plus dipped below 100 last year, so maybe he sees something that we don't, or is it just what David Stern says, Dan, the run prevention, the defensive aspect of this, which I'm not a fan of? Brandon Nimmo, you know what you're getting out of him every year. Semien, in my opinion, his best days are well behind him, but I don't know what you think about that, Dan.
I think you said it best. It's a win now move for the New York Mets. You are now solidifying second base. You can basically kiss away Jeff McNeil, the same thing we've been doing for the past couple of weeks. He is officially gone as of this move. So that's very interesting. Again, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things to try to digest at this moment in time. Brett Beatty not going to be playing second. This is Semien's spot, and it does open up those avenues for Jet Williams as well. What does the trade market look like for him? Is he going to be a factor moving forward? Semien can also play shortstop a little bit. I don't believe, again, those days are behind him as well. The defense is legit. He plays, and I do appreciate that about Semien. He has a winning pedigree, something that this team needed, right? Think about that 2023 run. I looked at, of course, the talk of the town earlier was Corey Seager. Is he going to go to the Yankees? This could be a big sell-off by the Texas Rangers that we're seeing, but yeah, Semien's going to slot in at second base. He's going to be a good, decent enough bat. Again, I don't think it was a good swap for Brandon Nimmo on the surface. It does feel like a bad trade. Nimmo is still the better player.
By far. It's not even close.
So, but this is a win now move. And in the same way we could have brought in a Bregman to do the same thing, we have a winner in the clubhouse now, somebody who knows what it's like. Obviously, Soto, of course, but we have somebody now who can really be a veteran presence on this team. It stinks for Brandon Nimmo. And I don't know, again, we'll find out. Did he approach the Mets? Did he say, yeah, this would be something? Because he had to waive the no trade. And that was the big talk. We were hearing from Martino just days ago that they haven't even approached him yet about waiving the no trade clause. So now he's officially okay with it. I think a part of this, too, is he's teaming up with his old buddy Jacob deGrom in Texas. And I think once Brandon Nimmo heard that was on the table, he was probably okay with it. So a lot of moving parts, still trying to just process this trade. Excuse me.
Dan, do you think that money could be involved here? How much money is Semien making per? Do we know? What is
that? Whatever it would be coming out to. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, run that really quick.
So, what is it, 25?
So he's making
75, 25 a year.
So he's making, I mean, maybe that's Texas. We keep hearing how Texas wants to get rid of some salary that's $5 million a year. Now, look, I'll be honest with you, Dan. I think when we're looking at this, I'm trying to digest this right now with you guys as we're going. I'm trying to get as much information as I can. I'm reaching out to everybody that I know in the community, trying to figure out what happened here and if there's a corresponding potential move for the New York Mets. So bear with us as we're going through here. Go ahead.
Yeah. In this case, the Rangers are shedding a little bit of salary. I mean, that was the whole point of trying to sell off some of these guys. It's not, the contracts do line up. That's why we were hearing stuff with Mike Trout being floated in for Brandon Nimmo. I didn't like any of that. Semien, it opens up the outfield, which is the next move, right? Like now we know who our second baseman is. Who is going to be the left fielder for the Mets? Is it Jarren Duran?
You know there's a corresponding move coming.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. Is he
Well, you
going to
have
bring
to don't we
Adolis
have to
Garcia?
assume? I mean, you're not gonna go in next year with Tyron Taylor in center and Carson Benjamin left. I mean, you're not selling any
No.
tickets. Can we just address one thing really quick? I know I'm not saying Nimmo's ever gonna see this because odds are he's not going to. But I want to say one thing. Through thick and thin, Nimmo's been here. He's never been a player to complain. He always loved the fans, stopped for every autograph. I go down and cover their spring training every year. One of the nicest guys, and I say that sincerely, that I've ever met in the game. I met him very briefly, just a hello, but he didn't have to do it. They never got an autograph from him, but seen him at spring training, always in the cage, always says positive things, loved being in New York. Never had a negative interaction. You never heard anything off the field. And when he was a free agent, you knew this was the place he wanted to be. So I want to say thank you to Brandon Nimmo for being the utmost professional, one of the more professional. He is probably, in my opinion, the closest player to David Wright that we've had in this organization in the last 10 years. Yeah, Pete's great. I'm not saying Pete is not. That's not a shot at Pete Alonso. Don't take it that way. But from a guy that I watched from when he was a kid in high school, drafted in first round by the Mets, watching him come through the system and, with a bad ownership, bad expectations, always had his head down, and he was the nitty-gritty guy. If you wanted him to have a high on base, he would lead off and have a high on base, higher batting average. Then the Mets told him, we need run drivers, we need RBI producers, we need strength, we need power. He did it. When they asked him to move from center to left, and I'll tell you right now, for a lot of players around Major League Baseball, when you ask them to switch positions, they give you the middle finger half the time. You think the Mets could ever approach Lindor right now and say, hey, we got a great shortstop coming up. Can you move to second base? There's no way that's happening. It's not a shot at Lindor, but a lot of these guys have pride, and that's what makes them great. But Nimmo knew his limitations, knew how to extend his career, and it was by moving to left field, and he accepted the assignment without one iota of complaint. You never heard him out there saying, well, I want, if I had my decision, I'd be the center fielder, but I got to do what's best. No, you didn't hear that. Nope, the Mets want me to play left. I'm there because we're trying to win games here. So I just want to thank Brandon Nimmo for that as we're going through this, guys. Guys, this is nuts. And don't forget, he had to waive his no trade to do this. So clearly he had some involvement. Dan, think about it. He got to choose where he went. So maybe it's closer to family towards the end of the career. But what do you take from this, Dan? And then, guys, we'll get to some of your comments very shortly. I promise. We're just trying to contain it. So if you guys are in here, do me a favor, smash that like button and become a subscriber. Consider becoming a member to be guaranteed to get your voices heard. All the breaking news, all the lives, all the post games. You are the first ones we always go to, and it's the best way to support the channel. But Dan, what do you make of this? Are you now thinking those rumors that we were hearing, the Angels, the Rangers, potentially Minnesota in a Buxton trade? Do you think that Nimmo was forcing his way out of here with those reports that we had last week?
I don't know if the two are together, like they were telling Brandon Nimmo, hey, these are our plans. I think they just kind of had the plans and moved Brandon Nimmo aside. You're right. We have to give him his moment in the sun because he's not a player you can just push aside. He's not a player that Jeff Passan can just leak on this list of 6 players, talking about Vientos and Acuna and McNeil, and then he slips Brandon Nimmo in there. It's like, he deserves definitely his time. And you're right. Brandon Nimmo's been a class act. I've said a lot of times on this show that if I had 9 Brandon Nimmos on a baseball field, you would be a World Series champion. He is the utmost person you want a son or daughter to look up to and say, I want my kid to play like that someday. I want them to be that role model. And that's who Brandon Nimmo is. I mean, every Sunday you go to those games, running out to left field, he goes down on one knee to talk to these kids. You don't see guys like that given that time of day to those types of kids. And he's the utmost what you want it to be. There's a lot of fans who are happy today that Brandon Nimmo's gone. I am not one of them. Ray, you are not one of them. We just want to make that very clear.
I want to say this.
Yeah.
I'm not happy about this trade necessarily. I'm not saying I'd be completely closed off to Nimmo because, look, I'm not blaming Nimmo. I want people to know that right now. I'm not blaming Nimmo for last year. But in my mind, something needed to change. We all knew, regardless of, Dan, we could talk to all the people that you've seen on our show, every single reporter that's in that clubhouse every day, I talk to all the time, and they all told me the same thing. There's nothing wrong with that clubhouse. But then you hear Nimmo being upset. You hear the Ottavino comments. You see the Will Salmon articles. Clearly, there was a divide in that clubhouse. And I honestly think the person who is causing that divide is still in that clubhouse. And no, I'm not talking Juan Soto, but I'll keep my mouth shut with that. But I'm not saying I was not open to a shakeup. And unfortunately, Lindor's contract's not tradable. Alonso's a free agent. McNeil, I think, will be traded, but he's not an impactful player. Nimmo's the only guy, in my opinion, that has value. Yeah. He's a good player still. You look at $20 million for 25 home runs, a 750 plus OPS consistently. You know what you're going to get. He has value. So I'm not saying, look, I would prefer to have Nimmo on this team. I think he's a glue guy, but I'm not totally like, you know what I mean? Well, go ahead, finish your point.
No, and there's a couple things there, right? And from a secondary source here, you know, Brandon Nimmo's time in the clubhouse, like he became the 5th or 6th best player on this Mets team very quickly, right? We talk about Pete. Oh, they brought in Soto. How's Pete going to feel? Well, we don't think about how Brandon Nimmo felt. And people were talking how in 2025, potentially, you know, it's just he's still trying to be that leader, and he's the 5th or 6th best player on the team. And that stuff does not really fly well in clubhouses. It's not as well perceived as it was 5 or 6 years ago as it is today. So I just wanted to make that very clear. That could be something that's going on behind the scenes. I think this speaks to the bigger picture. And I think that's really, once we're over this moment, which we will be very soon, we're going to miss Brandon, obviously, but it speaks to the bigger picture that you alluded to before when you're thinking about the bigger picture for the Mets. And does this mean Fernando Tatis Jr., which I am starting to believe that could very well be the case. I don't think I do that to you. I hear you. You're trying to continue your excitement, man. It's very exciting time, no doubt about it.
That's what it is, bro. It sucks. It's almost like you know what it is, Dan? My best friend next door just moved away. And I know he's going to a place he wants to move to with his family, but it still sucks because we grew up next to each other. I was like in high school when Nimmo was drafted. I mean, I'm in my 30s now. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like just graduating high school. It's my best friend next door moved away, but he's going to greener pastures. Now look, like I said, Dan, it's very easy for you to sit here and be upset and me to be upset, but what's the corresponding move? I got to think if something mega does not happen, I will be livid and I will call it out. I'll call it out to the 3,000 people that are in here right now and to anybody who will listen. I will call it out. I will say this too. If you guys are going to the Queens Baseball Convention, Dan's going to be there doing a live show with Mark Healy and crew. So if you're going to be there, make sure to stop by. They got an awesome audience happening, and I'm sure by then there may have been a corresponding move. And who knows? Maybe Dan will turn that frown upside down. But Dan, what do you think the corresponding move is right now? I mean, you got to think something big's I think, look, Kyle Tucker is not out of it. I'm telling you right now, Steve Cohen is effing pissed. From somebody who, Steve Cohen follows us over on X, so I'm not going to say he told me this, but from somebody in his inner circle that I know very closely, been friends with for a long time, said he was effing livid. That's all he would say. Had one conversation with him, how he felt about it. He was effing livid. And he didn't say he was going to make changes. He didn't say anything. But what happened, Dan, the last time Steve Cohen was pissed off? What happened? Everybody paid for it. And I got a feeling Cohen knows, Dan, we talked about this, and I know you don't totally agree with me. There's a gap between us and Philly. And the way you change that is by changing this core. You get better defense. And look, that's the only negative I could think of Nimmo. I ran the advanced stats. For anybody who doesn't like the advanced stats or know the advanced stats, Nimmo was a minus defender last year. He graded out in like the 47th percentile, slightly below average. And when you look at his current injury and getting older, I'm not saying he's going to completely tank, but could I see him going from 47 to 42 next year? Oh, absolutely. And David Stearns reaches run prevention. And one thing, Dan, what does Fernando Tatis Jr. have that nobody on this team has? He won the Platinum Glove last year. And for anybody who doesn't know what that is, I know most of you Mets fans do, and the fans that are in here do. There's one given out to the greatest defender in Major League Baseball, and it went to him. He is the move. Maybe, just maybe, Soto swallows his pride, says, I will move to left. You bring Tatis in here, and look, you better bring Pete Alonso back. Oh my God, Dan. That's another thing we could get to. Are they going to bring back Alonso? Is that still in our cards? Something we need to address here. I mean,
I want to address that.
Shorter contracts, so it might work out better for us. But what's going on with Pete Alonso?
Yeah, that's the next question, right? And real quick on the pivot moves, there's probably about 4 pivot moves that make sense, and then we'll leave this Brandon Nimmo topic. Byron Buxton, of course, you floated him a lot, Ray. That makes sense. He's willing to waive
They tried in midseason.
Yeah, but he wasn't willing to waive his no trade. Now he is to a contender. So the Mets are a contender. Byron Buxton. Number 2, Fernando Tatis. AJ Preller definitely would be the type of guy to do it. He feels like potentially his time with San Diego could be coming near to an end. So you never know. Anything can happen during those meetings. So Tatis is definitely a name that we've heard floated. Another one would be, again, like a Cody Bellinger. I still think that could be in the equation.
Now it's definitely in the equation, isn't it?
Right. Oh, for sure. So even more so than it was.
Catch.
Mets are going to be targeting one of these guys. Again, I think Kyle Tucker is more on the outside looking in. And then always the in-house option, which at this point, it really would surprise me of a Carson Bench going out there to play even left field on opening day. I just don't see that. Yeah. So one of those seismic moves is coming, whether it's a Buxton, a Tucker, a Tatis. There is definitely going to be something that is going to happen because you don't just trade Brandon Nimmo, a fan favorite amongst many, still a good player, still in, you could say the back end of his prime in some ways. Like he still is able to produce. It's frustrating, and we'll see what happens. With Pete, I think this is definitely one of those pivot points, right? Because the Mets have now broken up the core. They have done it. Whether we like it or not, it is officially separated and severed. Why not go any further? And why not keep doing it and not bring Pete back? They're going to give him a team-friendly deal. I think the Mets want Pete Alonso back. Well, he's not coming back on a team-friendly deal. I'll tell you that. Not 3 years.
Especially now it's his best friend, right, in the clubhouse. At least that's what we've heard.
Yeah, one of them for sure. With McNeil, who's probably going to be the next guy out. Again, the Mets brought in a second baseman. You're not going to have McNeil and Semien on the same team. So with Pete, it's just watch and wait. I think the Mets are going to give him some offers, but they might not be fair relative to his market where it's going to creep up. We'll see. But yeah, this Nimmo move stinks, but you have to think about the bigger picture. The Mets are probably thinking about a Buxton or I would hope a Bellinger and maybe even Tatis.
And let's be honest, guys, not to pat ourselves on the back, but our boy Dan right here, he's the one that had the Pete Alonso offer first. 3 years, that's what we were hearing. 3 years, we got some numbers potentially right in the ballpark. And the following day, Sal Licata on WFAN says he's hearing 2+1. It ain't happening. Pete Alonso, there's a reason why this past trade deadline, for anybody who doesn't know, a guy named Ryan Clifford, they had a crazy, what I was told from 2 sources, that they had a crazy high price on him. Big slugging first baseman, went all the way from single A, double A, triple A last year, mashing home runs, probably has the best raw power in all of minor league baseball, 22 years old. He was the blue chip, in my opinion, in the Justin Verlander deal, which netted us him and Drew Gilbert. Drew Gilbert's already in San Francisco. He ain't staying here. So that tells you that. I think and one thing that we haven't talked about in a while, Dan, what did Mark Vientos just say in his most recent interview? What did he say? He said, the Mets have me taking equal reps this offseason at third base and first base. Why would you do that? If you know his third base defense is atrocious, wouldn't it be 100% there? Why are they having him learn first base, which he just started to last year, and it was on a part-time basis? Let's go back. Spring training. Alonso's deal was not done yet. Remember, Valentine's Day had happened. So right before then, remember the Mets put out there Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos taking reps at first base? I'm telling you, dude, the writing is on the wall. And for anybody who's questioning the contract right now, I have it pulled up right here. 26 next year, 26 the following year, and 20 after that. It's not 26 like we thought. So the Mets, by doing this, think about this, Dan. If money's not going the other way, Nimmo, the final 2 years of Nimmo's contract at $20 million per, will still be on the books when this falls off for the New York Mets. So maybe they're thinking long term as well, but I got to think of subsequent moves coming. Dan, get to your thoughts, and we're going to get to some of your guys' comments as we keep heading down we were actually going to plan on doing a live in a couple of hours. This news breaks, we got to bring it to you. And I thank so much of you guys for being in here. We're approaching 4,000 people live. Appreciate that so much. Do me a favor, smash that like button. And if you want to be locked in to get your voice heard, become a member, just $2 a month over on YouTube. That's where we're reading our comments. Have a bunch of them saved. I'm going to get to a lot of you guys who are members over there. Dan, get to your comments on that as I star some of these comments that we're going to get to and have some discussion.
Yeah, I mean, the Rangers took on the contract. The Mets paid down a little of it. They got the contracts to even out. It all makes sense to me. Just again, it's really one of those days where you sit back and say, wow, the Mets are really serious about winning a championship. And this was one of the moves that you always knew it could happen. You always had the idea in the back of your mind. I just never believed that it actually would happen. And today, definitely, roll with the punches. That's life. I mean, Brandon Nimmo is traded. He is not a Met anymore. I was delusional enough to sit here and say that number 9 was going up in the rafters someday because I believed that he was going to break Ed Kranepool's record for the most amount of games played in a Met uniform. He wasn't injured in the way people thought. I mean, the planters, of course, was an issue, but he still found ways to go out and give you 155 games a year. But again, those messages grow stale in the clubhouse, going back to that point of him trying to force his leadership on other people. And it ended up rubbing some people the wrong way. And that could be Lindor. That could be Vientos. I don't know. I would hope that the Mets approach some of these guys before they made a move like this and said, hey, would you be okay with this? Do you think this needs to be redacted, or should we go forward with it? And they probably all said the latter. And it is what it is. But I just hope that he does well in a Texas Ranger uniform. I wish nothing but the best for Brandon Nimmo in the same way. I wish his teammate Jacob deGrom in the nothing but the best.
Who Dan was praying he was seeing was on the other end coming back.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to get some of your guys' comments really quick. Got some of our members pulled up here. I know Andre starts it off. Holy smokes. Mets World says, great trade. Ava chiming in. How stupid is this guy to trade Nimmo? Like, why couldn't we trade McNeil? I actually think, Ava, and we'll ask Dan, I think he's the next one to go.
Yeah. It all makes sense.
Look at that contract, Dan. 2 years, 15 and change per.
And the Mets just brought in a second baseman, guys. Like, where is McNeil going to play? And we're talking about Donovan, too. Donovan's going to take McNeil's place as the utility guy. Acuna got hit in the hand. He could be out. I don't know. Hopefully nothing's broken. But, I don't know what the future is. But I do know that Marcus Semien's going to be the Mets opening day second baseman. I do know that.
Let me ask you straight up, Dan. Who do you think won or lost? Is it just straight up those two guys, or I thought there might have been somebody else involved?
There might have been. Again, we hopped on the live. I'm sure there might have been something else in there, but I'm pretty sure it might have been just a 1-for-1.
Some people keep saying Tucker's going to want $400 million. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't want Tucker personally. I know he's a good player. There's reasons to want Kyle Tucker. There's also reasons not to want Kyle Tucker. I'll leave it at that. Buxton
I'll take him all day long. Last year, 266, 22, and 500 at bats. But you look at that OPS, 841. He's not Juan Soto, I will say that. But
would you take Kyle Tucker, or would you take Byron Buxton or Tatis? I mean, you would obviously prefer.
What would you have to give up for Tatis? Are you giving up Carson Bench?
I mean, we could always get into that conversation, right? I think Jett Williams is in that conversation.
If I had my choice between all three of those guys, I'd prefer Tatis, Tucker, Bellinger, Buxton. And I only say that because we always call a spade here, don't we, Dan? Mm-hmm. Buxton is never healthy. I got to put it out there. I think last year's the most games he played in the last 3, and it was 120. He still missed 50 games last year.
Yeah, so that's the question the Mets are pondering. They could trade Carson Bench at this point if they're just really going Tyrone Taylor as the fourth outfielder.
I'd be shocked.
Listen, I'd be shocked too, Ray, but I'd be shocked if they traded Brandon Nimmo, and they did. So I don't know.
We've been talking about it for 2 months.
Yeah, I just didn't.
I mean,
again,
clearly this has been going on for a while. There's no way, Dan, the Mets today say, hey, Brandon, by the way, want to go play in Texas? Because
well,
he's got the final say. He could say, F off. I'm not going
well,
anywhere.
I'm just going off what the reports are, right? And Andy Martino,
Sure.
you can choose to believe him or not. As of Thursday of last week, he was sitting here saying, hey, yeah, we haven't approached Brandon Nimmo at all. So I do
Well,
think
they might not tell you that. What if that gets out there and then he doesn't get moved?
I don't know.
Imagine
Yeah,
you
I
want
get
to
it.
talk about a clown show in spring training. Hey, Brandon, how's it feel that the Mets were shopping you this offseason? Like, you know what I mean? The
I got
Mets,
you.
the Mets operate. That's one thing I could appreciate about the Mets. They have been operating way different under Stearns. Remember last year, the Mets are in 5th place. The Mets are in 8th place for Juan Soto, and the whole time we're in 1st. You know, you hear that all the time. The Mets are very tight-lipped, especially with their own. I'm sure Nimmo, like anybody else, when this story got out there that he wasn't happy about the whole thing with Lindor. I doubt that's what drove him out. But listen, crumbs are crumbs. Smoke is fire. Something that we talked about just last week, Dan, where there's smoke, there is fire. Nimmo probably said, listen, I'm open to a trade. Here are the destinations I'm willing to go. I doubt he just said, I want Texas or nobody, because then it wouldn't work out. But there's a reason why we heard the Angels. There's a reason why we heard the Twins. There's a reason why we never heard about Texas. Did you ever hear about him going to Texas?
No.
I mean, that's,
You
we
can
know
put
he's
two
a
and two
Midwest
together with,
guy.
things outside of baseball, say Texas, nice little state for Brandon, but I did not hear anything, no. So you're right. These things happen. Mets don't leak. They certainly don't in this case.
Especially with their own. They're not going to tell. They're going to tell Andy Martino, yeah, we're shopping Brandon Nimmo. So if we don't get a deal done, spring training's really a clown show.
I get it. It's two sides of the coin on that. You're right in what you're saying. I think too. I mean, I believe that, hey, Martino might have gotten it right and the Mets didn't approach him and all this stuff happened pretty quickly. I do think that could have happened too, but I guess we'll never know, which stinks. But
well, we might.
Sure.
Your coworker John Heyman is pretty damn good at his job. I will say that. Maybe it breaks or Jeff Passan. Who knows? Let's get the explosive. Says news came out. Nimmo didn't want Lindor as captain a few days ago, and now he gets moved. I don't think one has to do with the other. I think that was just a really good, Adam Ottavino pushing buttons. Maybe it is. Maybe Ottavino and Nimmo talk. I don't know, but it's not safe to assume. I would like to wait for a little more reporting to come out. I'll tell you one thing. And listen, do we really know these guys 100%? You don't know anybody 100%. That's one thing I've always learned. One thing in my career field, you never know anybody 100%. But Brandon Nimmo doesn't strike me as a guy who's calling up Ottavino and saying, hey, F these guys. I should be I don't see that. I just don't. I've watched Nimmo. I've watched his body language. Dan, you've watched him. You've covered him. You're part of the media for a decade now. You don't view Brandon as that kind of guy?
No, I don't. And I think a part of this too, again, goes back to that point of Nimmo wanting to be this leader, thinking he's this leader, and then trying to get the others to believe that or try to, follow in his footsteps in a way. Not to say that's bad. I think every player needs that. But 3 years in a row, as he's a declining player himself, that message can grow stale. And I think a part of this too, they might have approached Francisco Lindor and said, hey, how do you feel about Nimmo? Like, do you think he could be a trade piece? These are things that
Do you think he's going to Lindor now, or do you think they're going to Soto?
I think both. I think they're both the faces of the franchise in their own respective way. You could make the case one or the other over the other. I totally understand that, but you're not going to make a decision without at least Francisco Lindor or Juan Soto knowing, preferably both. I don't think Soto cares one way or the other, but Lindor might have had a say. And I guess we'll have to wait and see if that ever materializes.
Yeah, guys, if you say anything inappropriate in the comments, I just ban you for life. Wishing death on somebody, that's not happening. I'll just put it out there right now.
Yeah, we don't.
Who's been blocked in the comments. Ain't happening. But I want to get to somebody who a lot of people think he's a clown. I don't. I think he knows his stuff. He put the Mike Trout rumor out there a couple days ago. Let's think of Sal Licata's initial instincts as to the Mets deal. Let's give it a listen.
Hi, Nimmo had to go. As nice a guy as he is, high character individual. We talked about it in season last year. I thought that the Mets needed to try to trade Nimmo then. Clearly, they needed this kind of shakeup here to get things started in the offseason. No way you can improve defensively if you have Nimmo and Alonso back on the same team. I believe that they're going to keep Alonso. I felt that way all along. They need to do that. This should clear a path now for Pete to be first base / DH and an outfield spot. And maybe that's where they go big here. Hey, put on the big boy pants, go get Kyle Tucker. But now that Nimmo has accepted the trade to Texas, they save some money and they get better defensively. Semien's not going to be the offensive stud that he once was, but he can be productive still offensively at second base. But you're getting an elite level defensive player. Huge move. Had to happen. This is exactly the type of move the Mets needed here to get things started this offseason.
All right, you see it. Maybe you view it from that perspective, Dan. Something that we've talked about. It's hard to bring Alonso back to be a first base / DH when Nimmo in 2 years is probably a permanent DH going forward. So maybe you're able to move it that way. You bring back Pete Alonso now. Semien's a way better second baseman than we have on this team. Lindor's a solid shortstop. If you do go the Brett Beatty route at third base, we know how he could be a pretty damn solid third baseman. Maybe you can then bring a Pete Alonso where he's not forced to be diving and scooping balls and doing all this stuff all over the place. He could just play first base full-time next year. I'm not one of those guys who says Pete Alonso's got to be a DH full-time next year. I just don't. But I do think that he could be a full-time first baseman next year. The next year you move to DH. Hopefully Ryan Clifford comes in at that point. But I'm with Sal. Kyle Tucker, Tatis. Now, look, the positives with Tucker, Dan, is you're not giving up any major assets. I'm assuming Jet Williams, one of the pitchers, and another prospect, maybe Jacob Reimer or something, would have to go back for Tatis, knowing they're trying to move him. But the Mets have the farm system. Shout out to MLB's top 150. Just count their new farm system rankings. The Mets are number 5. If they want Tatis, they can go get him. It provides us flexibility now. And a positive thing for Mets fans, you know something else coming. You know it. And I hope it's not Brandon Donovan. It better not be. If Donovan's the big move, I'll be livid. We need a big bat here.
Brendan Donovan cannot be the big move. You're right. It's either Buxton, Tatis, or Tucker. I don't even think Bellinger at this point could be that big move. It would be a big move. Maybe Bellinger and again, you want to say Ketel Marte. Those days are done. No more Ketel Marte trades. We got a Marcus Semien trade. So maybe,
I don't think Ketel was ever coming here, by the way.
No, I hear you. And I think Bregman could be, again, another big trade to pair with a Bellinger, a Schwarber, right? But if you really want to swing big, specifically in the outfield, which the Mets at this point have Tyrone Taylor and Juan Soto as the 2 outfielders for 26, you have to figure it out. And I think Benj could be traded. I think Jet Williams could be traded for a Tatis package. You could even trade Ryan Clifford. There's ways to work around it. He's not the end-all, be-all, right? Especially if Pete Alonso's back. And again, Semien has good range. He doesn't have the same range that a Luis Angel Acuna did. We saw that last year. He was unbelievable with the glove, but he just couldn't hit. Semien still gives you good range. It's just, he's a second baseman, and that's what he is, and we'll have to live with it. So you're right, though. I think Kyle Tucker's a good player. I don't want him anywhere near the New York Mets, and that's just me. I think there's better players. He was getting booed at Wrigley Field this year in front of his home fans. Like there was problems with Kyle Tucker, especially this year. So
very slow start.
Yeah, I'm interested. Don't get me wrong. You have to make a big move now that you traded Brandon Nimmo. Like everybody's watching the Mets because you can't just go into next season with Benj in left, Tyrone Taylor in center, and Soto at right. No way.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
All right, guys, we're gonna get to a few more comments before we wrap things up tonight because I got to get running. Dan says, Ray, the first to break the news. Great job. Well, first to be on YouTube, maybe, or live. I'm not totally sure about that. Andre says, Semien's contract is shorter. Yes, that does help the Mets. 2 years shorter, I guess. Who knows what's going to happen with this new CBA. B. Jax, one of the new members. Appreciate you, my guy. Wow, didn't see this coming. Stearns is not playing around. Well, let's see. It all depends on the corresponding move. That's where we're at. I mean, if you're able to get a Tatis stand and hold on to Carson Benj, there's a potential this outfield could be set for the next decade. That's something that I just talked about in a video. Your outfield set, then you focus on pitching. If you're telling me this offseason, the Mets come away with a front-end starter, they get Diaz back, Alonso back, Marcus Semien, and then Tatis is in left field, I'll roll with that.
Yeah, it's a good plan. It works, right? I think also trading for Skubal could make a lot of sense even at this point because it's a big move, right? Obviously, the offense needs to be fixed in the absence of Brandon Nimmo, but it's not like we're replacing Pete Alonso, right? Or trying to make that up. You can make up that gap pretty quickly by just bringing back Pete and figuring out the outfield, going trading. Again, Steven Kwan makes a lot of sense. Even a Dalton Varsho on the lower end if you really want to plug out this outfield. For me, you got to trade for a pitcher, man. You have to do it. And I know
There's a lot of holes still.
A lot of holes. Freddie Peralta, Joe Ryan, Tarek Skubal. We've talked about the names. It's put up or shut up time for the Mets. This is a winning move, as you said in the open, Ray. The Mets are ready to win a world championship. They just have to go out and have an off season like a World Series champion. And I think this is the first sign of that happening.
Totally agree. All right, let's get to a few more here. Ryan says, "Show me Fernando Tatis." I'm with you with that. Mitch says, "I don't like the move at all. Tatis is an albatross." I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that about Tatis. Yeah, he got caught, but still very productive. Lulu, a longtime listener of the show, appreciate you. These days, I try not to root for the number on the back of the jersey, but I have to say I will miss Nimmo. Just want to say how much I appreciate him, his years with us, wishing Nimmo the very best. I think we all are right now. Jay says it opens up the spot to sign Kyle Tucker or Bellinger. I think that's a name to watch. You want to talk about defensive versatility? You could bring in Alonso and Bellinger now. That's not out of the realm. And we've always been saying, Dan, when are you going to get real protection for Pete Alonso? Bellinger would be the guy. F. Morgan says, has to be more to this. Appreciate you being a member. Klub, always appreciate you as well. Skubal trade incoming next. Buzz, what's going on, my guy? Long time. Something has to be cleaned up. Something has to be up. He had a no full trade. That's why I think that he asked for it. Bob, another one of our members. Appreciate you, Bob. I don't think Semien adds much to the Mets. 2 years older than Nimmo, middle infielder, usually doesn't age well. I will say this. Even John just tweeted it out. He is an elite level defender. And you want to talk about run prevention? How many times are the Mets throwing the ball around the field? How many times was a ball going under someone's glove that it shouldn't have? Too much. And I will say this, if you're bringing him in to put him towards, if you're going to replace Nimmo, say with the Bellinger, and then you add Semien to the bottom of this lineup, it gets longer. How many times are we going to talk, Dan, about the Mets top of the order coming up? There's never anybody on base. That happened the entire season last year.
Yeah, I think when they say prioritize defense, I didn't think they were talking about second base when Stearns gets up on the mic and says, yeah, this is something, whatever he said, talking about defense and run prevention, right? I thought he was talking about Vientos at third and Pete at first and Siri and Mullins in center field. I didn't think he was talking about second base. I didn't think second base really needed to be improved because you had Acuna who was very good at defense. He just needed to hit. And I thought the Mets were just going to trade McNeil and bring in a better version of him and Brendan Donovan, and they didn't. So this is a weird move. You asked me before, who won the trade?
Again, we'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see, but I think on the surface, the Rangers won this trade. And we'll see. Again, I don't know how Brandon Nimmo is going to look next year, but if he gives you the 30 home runs that we always expected from him and he stays healthy and I don't know, man. It's a weird trade, especially being 2 years older. Marcus Semien, I didn't expect that. I would have rathered Corey Seager to play second base. I would have rathered Bo Bichette or Ketel Marte to play second base. But this is what we got on our Thanksgiving plate, Ray, so we might as well eat.
I also think one thing that we got to talk about, Dan, we can't misstate this. Semien plays. Outside of last year, it's 160 games, 150 plus every single year. Nimmo's a guy that he's got the foot thing, so I maybe that played into it a little bit. Having instability in the infield. I mean, how many times we showed up every day? Nobody knew who's playing third or second. Literally nobody. Nobody knew. That was an issue. Some guys like Cliff Floyd always used to say, I like coming to the ballpark knowing I'm in left and I'm hitting fifth every day. I don't want to be running around the bush. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Randy, a new member, says, Nimmo sucks, bottom line. I wouldn't go too far. I think Nimmo is more than capable of what he does. I think the injury concern, and I think that they're trying to get more consistency. They want to plug a guy in, know he's going to be there every day. And guys, we saw a few years ago what Jose Iglesias did for this team defensively. And obviously, I'm not saying Semien's that kind of bat, but he is that kind of defender. I mean, if you're going to have, I think David Stern sees the writing on the wall too. Peterson, ground ball pitcher. Manaea, ground ball pitcher. Senga, even with the splitter, depending on if he's going to be here or not. A splitter type of pitcher who induces a lot of ground balls. You want to be strong up the middle. And that's something Stearns talked about. He said in the perfect scenario, we would be very strong up the middle. That's why outside of a couple of guys if Byron Buxton comes in here, and I know he ain't going to be healthy, but if he plays 130 games for us, he is in the 100 percentile in sprint speed. I mean, it's just there's no going around it. You clearly see what's going on here. At least I do. I think I do.
Yeah, two-time Gold Glove Award winner. Again, he brings that winning pedigree. He has a championship. These are things that made again Alex Bregman so appealing. There's not many guys like that come available that say they can improve from a leadership perspective too. I think Semien's going to be looked at as a leader of this clubhouse, and rightfully so. And I'm excited for him because I think he's at the point in his career where he's deserving of it. Is he going in the Hall of Fame? No, neither was Brandon Nimmo, but I think he adds a part to this puzzle that, you're right, really good defender, really excited to see that. And I don't want to make this about they pushed Brandon Nimmo out of the Mets clubhouse. I don't think that was the case, but to sit here and deny that we watched 162 Mets games, we follow this team very, very closely, Ray and I. We know the ins and outs of this team and the sport.
Yeah, 160 post games.
Yeah.
Guys, we're here every game.
We look at this Mets team from a weird lens where there are those problems in the clubhouse, whether they're reported or not. You hear wind of it, and it makes sense. And I don't know if that was a part of this equation where the Mets, they looked at guys like Beatty and they looked at guys like Nimmo and Pete and McNeil, and they were their own group. And then you had the Series, the Martes, the Sotos, and then you had the Lindors, the Vientoses. I don't know. And I hope that this move, bringing in Semien, talking about the Nimmo stuff where he's kind of forcing, his leadership on people, I think Semien kind of just eases the room out, spreads out this lineup, and hopefully spreads out some of these mentalities where they're not crossing over each other. And hopefully something's fixed. And I think something will be. But it's a sad day for some Nimmo fans out there. I feel for you guys. I do. I thought this guy was going to be up in the rafters someday in the Mets uniform. So I'll take an L on that. We live and learn. But Marcus Semien is a New York Met. So
really quickly, I want to get to Martino's comments on this.
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry.
Live
Guys, it's not as easy doing this live. It's easier when I'm able to edit. I'll tell you that. But here's Andy Martino SNY's comments on this.
Mets trading Brandon Nimmo to Texas for Marcus Semien. So why? Well, I can explain why. Based on what I've heard here this evening. The Mets, of course, looking to get better in their defense. This is a move in that direction, in that at two positions this trade can impact that. Now, Semien is an elite defensive second baseman. Nimmo, not an elite defensive corner outfielder. So what this does is give the Mets a chance to improve their outfield defense. They could do that in free agency. If a Cody Bellinger, say, breaks to them, I'd say a Kyle Tucker is suboptimal because that has Juan Soto moving to left field if you were to sign Tucker. So in terms of the run prevention, the term that David Stearns, of course, likes to use, it would make more sense to either promote from within, leave room for some of the young outfielders they have coming, Jet Williams, Carson Benj, use the freed up roster spot for that. Well, again, getting so much better at second base. Jeff McNeil can play a little left now. Jeff McNeil can play some first base, depending on what happens with Pete Alonso, or even if Alonso comes back to DH a bit, McNeil can play first. So that's me spitballing with some information, of course, and reporting.
All right, Andy, you're fired. I will say this. Dan, there better be two outfield moves. Two. If this team, you cannot go into this season with Marcus Semien and Tyrone Taylor starting. Now, I'm not saying Semien's got a terrible bat, but it's the same crap as last year, if you ask me. You need a center fielder and a left fielder. Now, look, if you swing and get me Kyle Tucker, I know you're not the big person with that, but if you get Kyle Tucker or Tatis Jr., which I think Tatis the Mets are going to lean towards, him or Bellinger. But if you're able to get me that, then you can live with Tyrone Taylor and Carson Bench duking it out at the bottom of the lineup. But it better not be. If it's an average player, Dan, this fan base, including myself, will roast this executive staff like you have never seen before. The big move needs to be made. I'm talking a Juan Soto impact, obviously not player because it's not available, but a Juan Soto impact, exciting move that's going to rejuvenate this fan base and say, you know what? It makes sense to move Nimmo. Because all I just saw is the Mets just acquired a 97 OPS plus player and gave up a 110 OPS plus player, a player that is drastically better at the plate. Now, it all depends on the subsequent move, and it better not take long because people are going to get worried, Dan. But what do you take away from Martino's comments?
Yeah, I think he's spot on, right? I think they want to improve defensively. That upgrade is clear now. Like, even if it was McNeil versus Semien, there's an upgrade at a position defensively. That's a win for the Mets. They don't have a left fielder, right? Which needs to be, obviously, as you said, fixed, whether that's a Bellinger that can get it done, whether it's a Tatis, you move Soto over to left, which I've been saying to you a couple times, Ray. I mean, I think that's probably his better position to play left field.
I think he will too now that he's been paid, by the way.
Right. So they're going to have to figure out right field. That's where Tatis makes a lot of sense. You can let Bench run out there in center field with Tyrone Taylor. I do think, too, it's not really to play the outfield, but I think, again, Adolis Garcia, who was non-tendered by the Rangers, he was good friends with Marcus Semien. So maybe this is one of those moves where they just tack on, instead of a Starling Marte for the last bench bat / outfielder, it would be Adolis Garcia. So that could be something to think about. But yeah, it's definitely an upgrade in terms of defense. It's a downgrade in terms of instant offense, but I think they're going to make up for that in other places. Bringing back Pete feels like it's more likely than it was before, because we were always saying, is it Brandon Nimmo or is it Pete? Are they both going to be back in the same offseason? Is it one or the other?
No one thought both would be gone.
Right. Well, that's kind of where I'm leaning to. So I think, again, this increases the likelihood that Pete's back. We'll see what happens with Edwin Diaz. That really isn't involved here, but there's a lot of different moving pieces, but the Mets better make a big swing, and I do think that they will now that Brandon Nimmo's out of the picture.
And I will say this, guys. We got to leave it here because I got stuff I have to do. I had commitments. We just wanted to jump on with you guys. This will be our live for today, but I'm off during the week. So any breaking news, you know where to be. We'll bring it to you. I'll be sure to have guests during the week. I'm going to definitely get a couple of writers on who cover the New York Mets. So make sure you subscribe. We have a New York Mets jersey giveaway at 10,000 subs. We're just a couple hundred away. So make sure you smash that like button. Over 5,000 people here. We appreciate you guys. But I'm telling you right now, my prediction, within the next 7 days, you're going to see breaking news come across your screen. The New York Mets have signed Cody Bellinger. Mark it down. Because you know what that allows? It allows the Mets to say, well, we're not sure where we're going to play him. Hey, Pete, you really want to be a Met? We'll welcome you back, but your replacement's right here. But if you want to come and be a part of something big, we could move him to left field or center field, and you could be first base and have the real protection that you deserve. Just saying. The versatility of Cody Bellinger changes everything. And Dan, what's it cost the Mets? Just a little more of this. Which final thoughts, Dan.
Well, Ray, I'm happy we were able to get on this live in a timely manner. Happy Sunday to everybody. Again, bringing you the best here on Metcast. We always appreciate Ray getting this live set up. Crazy day for the Mets, right? Semien, Nimmo out of the picture, a core piece of this Mets team. The Mets are going for it. Don't get confused. This is not a punt season. This is not, we're playing it till 2027 after the lockout. The Mets are getting ahead of the lockout, and this proves that. They improved defensively at second base. McNeil probably out of the picture. We'll see who the outfielders are for the Mets moving forward. The hot stove's heating up, and it's just getting started. Ray, let's go.
Yeah, I'm looking. John Heyman, Brandon approves trade. Huh.
Yes. Yeah,
There we
1
go.
for 1. 1 for 1.
All right, guys, make sure those notifications are on. Like and subscribe. Become a member like all those people are to get your voice heard. Let's go, Mets.
Let's
Take
go,
it easy.
Mets.
God bless.